What are your thoughts on the Jay-Z thing?
I mean, I kind of want to say the same thing you're saying. I think those people are all bought and paid for and bribed or blackmailed, I should say, based on their activities. So I think whenever you get to that level of Hollywood and that level of prestige, I don't think it's everybody, but I think you have a very strong likelihood of being corrupt and being corrupted. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the Bible says, it's harder for a rich man to go through the eye, or
Yeah.
it's easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle than to get into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's indicting rich people as a category. I think it's basically saying that there's a high likelihood that your riches are consuming you.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is like, well, how is it consuming you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have people that feel that they're above the law because they go to these lavish parties, there's no cops around, and
Mm-hmm.
they can do all kinds of things, drugs, underage kids, whatever. And then when they're found out, it's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think when it comes to people like Jeffrey Epstein and Diddy, Ghislaine Maxwell, I just think they're the tip of the iceberg. They're just the people that were pushed out and sacrificed for a much bigger game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think there's a huge blackmail game that goes on at those levels.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever do you ever hear about the like the different secret societies that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
like Bilderberger Group or whatever? Have you ever heard about those like political organizations? It sounds wacky. Like
Mm-hmm.
they go and dance naked around
Giant
some
owl.
giant statue of something,
Yeah.
and it's like, so what's going on there? Like, are these people internally like really believe that there's power in that ceremony, or is it more of like a you're making yourself vulnerable to a group that you kind of have each other's, you kind of have something on each other,
Yeah.
and that's the way the game works, right? Like
Yeah.
if you screw me over, I screw you over,
Yeah.
and it's no longer a loving relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's now a manipulation game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people that are like power hungry or fame hungry, like they'll compromise themselves and they'll probably find themselves down paths that they regret.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like they can't turn back, or they feel like they can't turn back,
Mm-hmm.
and they just have to submit to the life.
And comply.
They comply. I mean, isn't that evil?
That's super evil, man.
I mean, that's evil. That is evil. Like, that's evil described as how it works.
You know what's weird? That well, not weird, but you just said Epstein and Diddy in the same breath, in the same sentence, and maybe a few years ago, people wouldn't have seen it that
Yeah,
way.
there would have been no. Well, I mean, I don't know. Were they even affiliated at any point in time?
But I've heard things about Diddy forever.
Yeah.
Like there was always these like conversations that went behind off camera or
Right.
or in back rooms, right? Like years ago I could have said something about Diddy and a lot of people would have looked at me and been like, "You're crazy, man. He's not like that," you know? And I can say, "I heard this. I heard that though. I heard this
Yeah.
like I'll share this one story. A friend of mine told me that he was close friends with another guy who was pursuing hip hop music with a group. And they were about to get signed. So a friend of a friend's was about to get signed to Bad Boy Records, which was Diddy's record label
Okay.
back in at that time when my friend told me this. And he said that his friend and his rap group were in an office with Diddy, Puff Daddy at the time, and he said, "All right, I got the contracts laid out for you. Um, you're about to get signed. You're about to be millionaires, but before you do, I do. you have to do this. And he dropped his pants, exposed himself, and said, all of you gotta fellatio, right? And when my friend is telling me that, I'm like, I don't know, that's crazy, right? Because it just didn't seem, it just seemed like a made up story at the time. And I remember I would tell people this, like, yo, I heard that Diddy this, I heard that Diddy that, because a friend of a friend, and you know, you start off a story like a friend of a friend of a friend told me.
Right. And you have to take it with a grain of salt like, anyway, right?
And at that time, I was like, nah, that's just so like absurd and made up.
Yeah.
I say that story now, and it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. For sure.
I mean, it's like the whole idea of the casting couch.
But then the thing is that now, in retrospect,
oh yeah, it's like
then that probably wasn't a made up story. That probably was true.
So like,
and it's a power tripping thing. It's like you're gonna get signed.
Yeah,
but now I'm gonna have this against you.
Yeah, right.
So you're signing away not only royalties. And
that's
stuff, but you're signing your reputation. Yeah.
So like the idea of like selling your soul.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's as foreign of a concept as people sometimes imagine it to be, because it's like, if you want something bad enough and you feel like this is the thing that's going to make you free or make you, like the moment you start compromising yourself to obtain status or things, it's like you're just selling a piece of yourself away. And you know, and like Hollywood's a great example to me about like ideological capture. It's like, I'm sure that everybody in Hollywood doesn't think the same way, but the narrative that emerges is like a curated narrative that if you don't go along with this, you're going to get ostracized. Like, it's not even life-threatening, it's career-threatening, but you view that as life-threatening. So you comply, and you're doing it just to get along. You're doing it just because it's the easy thing to do. So, but, you know, like we're talking about the fantastic versions of that. I think we all are subject to that temptation. And I mean, I would say, like, to make it real, it's like, well, when we have an opportunity to share our faith or witness to somebody, we might hold back. Just because of the circumstance, we might hold back. And maybe holding back is the right thing to do. Maybe it's not appropriate in a certain circumstance, like you're just there to work or you're just there to do your thing. I subscribe to that. But I think if anything, I have to check myself.
Diddy's coming for you.
Yeah.
You hear what we were saying.
So I think knowing that, we have to check ourselves and ask ourselves, well, how often do we not say something, or how often do we not?
We comply.
Yeah. How often do we comply out of convenience? And you know, like we're no different. We're no different than.
It didn't even take much for us to comply.
Right.
And then these other people are like, there's things hanging over their heads.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what a trip too. Like, you know, we're going to see the C.S. Lewis Screwtape Letters in January. We're going to go watch a play. Have you ever read that book?
I was the one that told you about the book. Was I not?
No, I've been reading it for years.
Oh.
One of the parts that Screwtape is explaining to Wormwood about getting someone's soul, it's like, in the end, like Screwtape is basically explaining to Wormwood, like, you know, like the ultimate goal is to get someone's soul and give them nothing in return. So, like, in some ways, like up until that point, Wormwood is thinking like there's a trade. Like, I'll give them something if they forfeit their salvation.
Yeah.
And basically, Screwtape's saying, no, there's a way to get someone's soul and give them nothing in return.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you have somebody who's compromised that way with worldly possessions or fame, and like you hear about how miserable and bizarre relationships get in the background. The who was it? Amber, the court case that was televised between Johnny Depp and
Oh,
what's her name?
yeah, Amber Rose? Amber something?
Amber Heard.
Oh, heard.
So
Amber Rose's
yeah, I don't
model.
know. I have no clue who that is. But so like you get a peek behind the curtain whenever you have Johnny Depp and Amber Heard like putting their dirty laundry out for everybody, and it's like, all right, without them just explaining to the audience what actually happens behind closed doors, you get the varnished version, the dressed up nice, getting out of the limousine, going to an event, and then behind closed doors are monsters.
Yeah.
And it's like
Defecating on the bed.
yeah, exactly. So it's like you get these really strange things that happen, and it's like, and I'm sure like there's a microcosm of that in all kinds of places. It doesn't have to be Hollywood, right? It can be people that we know. Like they put a good face forward, but they're miserable.
Right.
They hate life. They hate people.
Right.
But they know how to like act through the day to make it seem palatable.
Right.
But like those people that sold their souls for fame and for fortune, like nice things have a shelf life. Mm-hmm. You get used to them. They wear off.
Mm-hmm. Then what's the next shinier, better, newer thing?
Right. So then you have like wanderlust, and you're lusting towards the next thing, the next big thing, and it's like, I think the people that make it, and even like people, this is like the hostile witness thing. So I'm not like a Jim Carrey fan per se. I think the guy's pretty strange. If you've listened to anything that he says, like he's out there. But like one of the things he says is like, I'd want everybody to be rich at least once in their life so they know it's not the answer. So it's like you have somebody who's like emotionally like damaged, and they're living a life that is confusing and sad, but like they're a funny man and they know how to make people laugh.
Yeah.
But then they go home and they cry and they they probably think about offing themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like, what a head trip. Like he needs salvation. Like he needs Jesus. Right?
Yeah.
So you have these people that are out there trying to be the voice of reason and explain to everybody what's going on, but they're missing the key component. But then you have people that are in Hollywood that are true believers and Christians, and you can just tell there's something different. Like there's something that sets them apart.
Like who?
I can't think of any like right off the top of my head. But like who's that? Kevin Sorbo.
Kevin Sorbo, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of someone like him.
Hercules.
Yeah, Hercules. And I think when people find salvation, it's like their life is different, inherently different. And it's kind of weird. Like I wonder what it's like trying to live amongst the cesspool that is Hollywood, being a Christian. Like you have enough of a big enough name that you're still sought after. But I think what happens a lot in Hollywood is people that stick their neck out a little bit on something that goes against the approved narrative, you just get ostracized. Like your gig is over. Yeah.
Like you had your run.
Yep.
And now you're not complying.
That's right.
Cut you off.
Yeah, you're out.
You're out. Who's the next big person?
Right.
Who wants this more than you?
Right.
Who's hungrier than you?
Yeah.
Who's the next unjaded one? Or great book.
It is a great book.
There's a part I'm trying to recall that really resonated, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think Screwtape tells Wormwood about the target guy, right?
Yeah, the patient.
The patient, patient. He's like, make sure that when he's at church, he sees
like everybody's flaws.
Yeah, the ordinary man.
Yeah.
So religion to him could be like a vulgar, ordinary thing, but don't sit him too much. Like, and he's like trying to tell him to strike the right balance.
Yep.
So that he perceives Christians this way.
Right.
I gotta read it again. I gotta read the book again.
Yeah, like I mean, he wants to draw the patient's attention that like, like the imperfections of the the people at the church, like
Right.
make them focus on, like it's a shabby little hymnal, like
Yeah.
then people are out of tune,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, that part.
or
Yeah.
like the people that are around him that up until that point are people he didn't even want to talk to, and like maybe one of the practitioners is a miser or an extortioner.
Yeah.
Like focus on the flaws, like
Yeah.
make it unappealing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, there was something about him striking a balance, not swaying too much to this side, not swaying too much to that side, keeping him in the middle. And I think that's what was gonna set the confusion, right? He's not hard pressed on one side versus the other, where it kind of keeps him neutral.
Well, yeah, and he actually that's such a good book.
And like, not unless you start getting into the style of the writing.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis can be pretty heavy
Yeah.
on his concepts, but out of all of his books that I've read, Screwtape Letter is the easiest. I think
It's
it's
an
the
easy
easiest
one,
easiest
yeah.
book to read. But disclaimer, and I would definitely do a plug for them. Hands down, the best version is the audio version that comes out of Focus on the Family. So Focus on the Family did a dramatized version, and they actually added parts to it. So like like the Screwtape letters are just like a series of letters from
A Screwtape to Wormwood.
Screwtape to Wormwood. Well, they actually tease in a narrative with the patient. So like they tease in a narrative that allows you to get an impression that there's actually a flow from. I mean, the Screwtape letters do this too.
Yeah, like when he's a child until his romance. And
Right. So you get that flow throughout his life, but they like fill in that backstory. As part of the Screwtape letters.
Okay.
And to dramatize, actually, the guy that plays Screwtape was the same guy that did the voice for Gollum in Lord of the Rings. You watch the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, just the first one, I think.
Oh, you're missing out.
Yeah.
Third one's great. Second and third one.
I don't remember. I don't recall. It didn't really.